Hello, my peeps, and welcome back to Passionate People and Preposterous Peeves. We are shin deep in Season 2. I'm your host, Ike, and before we get too far underway, I'd like to ask you one question. Do you enjoy this podcast? If so, would you mind doing me a favor and make sure you're subscribed, and then if you still have the energy, if you could like or share this podcast, that would be terrific. Now that that is out of the way, may I introduce the amazing, nay, radical guest we have today, Steven SAUDACHE!
Thanks for having me on today. I'm very excited.
Me too, bud. Me too. All right, first up, oldie but a goodie. You have a favorite movie line that you like to quote just because it's awesome?
Yeah, I use this a lot, especially when I do security work. Is like it's whenever someone comes up to you, it's like, "You sure you want to die on this hill?" I'm like, "One of us will."
That's so funny. What movie is that from? I know that, but I can't place it.
I can't recall the movie, but I feel like it's a Terminator. It's probably not. I definitely heard it from a movie before though, and like I just quote it all the time.
That's a great one. I know this one. Damn it! I'm gonna have to look that up during the break.
It feels like a Schwarzenegger though. It definitely feels like a Schwarzenegger.
It feels a little too. It feels Schwarzenegger-esque, but it seems like it's a little too like the idea that somebody would die on that hill and it could potentially be him makes me think it's not Schwarzenegger, because all the Schwarzenegger ones are just like monolith versus man. If that makes any sense.
Oh yeah. I got you.
But no, it is very much in line with that like kind of 90s awesome action Mad Lib that was every movie for like 10 years. Just like complete dialogue bang city. It was so great.
I do miss I do miss my action liner one-liners. I just think they were classics growing up.
Have you seen there's multiple, but there's like a couple big ones on YouTube that are like 1 or 200 like awesome like lines after a kill or lines before a kill or lines in it. Like there's like a plethora of these like videos of just like these amazingly dense supercuts of awesome action one-liners.
Oh yeah, that gets
like fills my cup up every time. It's so good.
Every time there's like an explosion, it's like he went out with a bang.
Yeah, exactly. Those are the Arnold ones. Those are the best ones. 100%. There's like an hour-long clip of just Arnold getting the best lines in film history.
I think one of my favorite ones was a spoof of like Arnold doing Hamlet.
Oh yeah, it's in The Last Action Hero, right?
Yeah.
He's like lighting a cigar. He's like, to be or not to be, and then there's this big explosion in the background. He goes, not to be, and just like walks off screen. It's so good.
Yeah, that is top tier right there.
Yeah, it's like black and white and the explosions in red. Oh yes, it's just tremendous. Well, since we're on the topic of movies, what was your first date movie?
My first date movie, I think one that comes up to mind is like I took this girl to see that movie Last House on the Left in high school.
Woof.
Not knowing what it was about. It was the new movie.
Woof.
And I knew nothing about it. And like that horrendous minute rape scene in the middle of it.
God,
Killed
that
the
is
date. Like there was
killer.
no like we didn't even like hold hands or anything.
It's over.
Like
no, just you both left crying. It's horrible.
It was so bad. I remember just being. I was like sitting there like, why the fuck did I? Who recommended this movie to me?
Yeah, at least I'm assuming you saw the new one. The old one that came out in like the 70s. It like the new one. The girl is raped, it's horrifying, but she ends up living.
Yeah.
And like, so there's like a little bit of catharsis, like, I think she's she kills one of the bad guys, or maybe the main bad guy is vengeance. And, there's a little bit of catharsis at the end.
I remember
the one that was made in the 70s, she just dies and the parents get vengeance, but it's like, it's so bleak. Even in victory, it's such a Pyrrhic victory for the parents who get like back, at the people who did this to their daughter. It's like, fucking what the like 70s, they didn't care who like how you left the movie. They're like, thanks for your money, idiot. And you're just like,
Yeah, I never remember at the end of it. I was like, at least the dad like put the guy's head in a microwave. Like I remember that.
yeah. Breaks the door off the microwave. Like that would work, which I love. Just the idea of just like, it'll still function. Just like snaps it off and sticks his head in there. I think they've got safety protocol in there, I hope, but geez, it was definitely a metal way to kill a guy, to be sure. All right, switching from the horrific to something a little bit more happy. If you were a condiment, which do you think you'd be?
I think I'd make a good aioli.
Nice. Any specific like type of aioli, or just in that oeuvre?
Just that oeuvre of just like, it's just something that just, you don't think it's it's a surprising flavor for most people. Like, it's like, oh, it's like, they don't realize it's a mayo, and they're just like, oh, you can just add a couple things and you're like, it's so much better. You put it on a burger and it skyrockets it. They're surprised every time. They're like, what is this? Aioli? What? Delicious.
They call me Steven SAUDACHE. I am the uplifter of all things.
Add a little spice to your life.
Aioli. Yeah, exactly. I add a little spice into your life. I'd wear that jacket. What's your favorite non-exercise thing that you have to force yourself to do?
Favorite non-exercise thing that I have to force myself to do?
Yeah.
Can you give me like an example?
For me, it's writing. To get myself down to sit down and like write like a screenplay or, like a joke idea and like really like bang it out and start to get to it. To get myself to sit down, holy fuck. I would rather get all my fingernails plucked out and then like run through a bath of like angry fire ants. But once I start to do it, especially when it's done, I feel so full. I'm like, yes, I did this awesome thing. I do like it, but like for some reason getting myself to sit down and actually just do it requires so much just hemming, hawing, and just powering through.
I would say mine is like transcribing my own videos, because I do my own writing for screenplays and stuff, except for I hate the whole writing process. I hate writing a script. I hate sitting there for hours trying to figure out page one. So instead, I'll just kind of like live my life, and then like I have a great thing, and I'll just record myself doing it, and then I will later transcribe it into a script, and I'm like, all right, this works perfectly. This is so much easier than me just like trying to sit at a desk.
That's a great workaround. That's really smart. May or may not steal that idea from you.
Try it. It's
Hope
great.
the copyright is is in place. Well, kind of along the same lines, maybe this is the same answer, but do you have a life hack that you'd like to share with the class to improve their daily living?
A life hack I would use often is just, I would say just doing it badly is one of the best life hacks I've learned. It's just like, I can't figure out how to do it. Kind of test it with a bad idea, and then you're like, oh, this is how everything could go wrong. I'm going to avoid all of that.
Mm. So this isn't quite like the Nike. My initial understanding of what you're saying, it was kind of like the Nike approach of just like, I'm worried about doing it badly. You're just like, screw it, let's do it.
Yeah, it's kind of like a just do it where...
Oh, okay.
At the very first,
So
a lot of it is just like, there's a lot of hesitation in taking the first step. And there's a lot of, you don't really want to screw up. If you go in the intention to screw up, it opens so many more doors for you. And then you start, and then and all that shit that you just painted against the wall, you find like a nugget of gold, and you're like, what are you doing there?
I don't remember eating you at all. That's so good. Yeah, it's something I still am constantly trying to work on, but I've heard that, and it really is just like, when you accept, for me, it's not necessarily trying to do it badly, although I can see how that totally works. For me, it's just accepting the fact that whatever I am about to do is just going to suck, and just being like, you know what, you want it to be good, so start with accepting that you're going to suck, trying, realizing it was better than you thought, but still needs work, and then like, since you've already like broken through the seal, you can't put it back on the shelf, you can't return it, you have to just now do the thing, right?
Yeah, you can't go backwards, and now that you have something there, might as well finish.
Yeah, exactly. It's always that for the first, like it's such a corny cliche, but it's so true. The first step is really just the hardest, because you have to accept that like you're now doing this thing that has all this, yibbity yobbity.
One thing I found really helped out
it.
with that was I read somewhere that Pixar starts with the ending. Like in their storylines, they like have an ending point, and then the rest kind of fills itself in.
Yeah. I've definitely heard a lot of writers like talk about that. They're like, when, before I start writing, I know sort of how my stories begin, but especially how it's going to end. Like, so you have like a trajectory of like where you want to end up. So you're not just kind of like, whoa. And as somebody who wrote their screenplay without knowing the ending, definitely a good idea. So the ending made no sense to my first screenplay. I was like, yeah, and we're about to page 120, so this should be the end. And I'm just like, what is this? Such a train wreck.
I gave someone very similar advice for D&D because they were asking how to run their own game, and they wanted to do their own homebrew world. And they're like, how do I build my own world? And I'm like,
yeah,
dumb it down. You're starting at the hard question. And I'm like, what do you want your players to do? And he's like, well, what do you mean? And I was like, well, I want my players to defeat an emperor, an evil emperor. Well, great. Now I have an emperor. That means I have an empire. And just kind of build from there.
Yeah. Instead of build from the inside out, not the outside in.
Yeah.
Right? Like you start with the focal point of what you want to be there, and then you fill out the image as opposed to like, making the border and being like, all right, now what do I still do? It's like, well, you've created a more elegant blank canvas.
Yeah.
As opposed to creating like a centerpiece and then, getting to like create outwards.
Yeah, and especially for D&D and stuff, it's less. Although world building is great, and like, don't get me started on my interest rate and on my baking systems, but it really is the activities we do as a group that really shines and what D&D is fun about. So it's like, what cool thing can we do today?
Oh, that's such a great way of looking at it. That's so cool.
And by the way, one of my players does have a note because he went into a bank and I had like a 5-tier system on the interest rates on what level in the bank you were, depending on how much money you had in. The rest of the table was very annoyed. I spent 30 minutes describing my banking system.
That's so rad. Well, since we're speaking about baking, what's your favorite meal to make just for yourself, assuming cost and time are not relevant factors?
My favorite meal to make? I don't know what that has to do with banking, but
well, you talked to. Oh, I heard baking.
No, my banking system.
All right. Well, I'll take the segues where I can.
Yeah,
get
that's fine. That
so we're going to baking. What's your favorite meal? What's your favorite meal to make just for yourself?
My favorite meal. I love making a good chicken Alfredo from scratch.
Noodles included?
Yeah. Noodles.
Oh, this guy.
Noodles. If I have the time, I'll make the noodles. But if not, I'll cheat on that. But the sauce and everything, sure, I'll make myself.
What is all right, for one, how long, like, as somebody who rarely goes to that elegant length, how long does it take you start to finish to do something like that? Assuming, if you can, like, how much with making your own noodles and how much without, like, ballpark it? I'm kind of curious.
Without noodles, it would take maybe 30 minutes. With noodles, maybe hour and a half. 2 hours if I'm very distracted. Which I can easily be distracted by anything, really.
What goes in your chicken Alfredo? Obviously chicken, obviously noodles, but the sauce is the crux of it, right?
The sauce is the crux of it. Garlic is, your bread and bacon right there. Garlic, you got to do unsalted butter. It really makes a difference. Yeah. Is
it because you're putting sauce somewhere or salt somewhere else in the mix?
When you're making the sauce, like the salt, I never learned the scientific term, but it does with how well the sauce coagulates and sticks to your noodles. Unsalted butter and salted butter, it does make a difference, and unsalted it's really better. And I should have been paying attention to my home ec class, but I wasn't because I was distracted.
Nobody did. Nobody paid that. It was the free A that everybody enjoyed. Like, you knit a sock, you made like a sandwich once, you poorly like burnt brownies, you went home with like a B plus. That everybody, nobody like paid attention to home ec in our generation. It was just like free A and I get to have cookies. I'm in. And then like that's what we all did. Who's someone you've never met, alive or dead, that you'd like to have lunch with? Perhaps make them said awesome chicken Alfredo.
Oh, alive or dead that I would love to meet?
Yeah.
There's too many. There's my top two. It's really hard to picture the two. Is Tom Hanks, who I think would be a delight. He's such a charming man that if I ever saw in the news one day that he punched a nun, my first instinct would be like, what did the nun do?
Yeah, what that old bird do to deserve it?
You know what? We all know there's bad nuns out there, but Tom Hanks had the courage to stand up to them, and it's about time we did something about it.
He took the first punch for society.
And I would love to meet Chadwick Boseman. He seemed like one of the most enigmatic, charming.
Yeah.
I actually had a friend who got to meet him, which I'm super jealous of. I used to work private security, and private security in LA, you get to meet stars all the time. And they got to do Nipsey Hussle's Grammy party before he died. And everyone was there, like Jay-Z, Beyonce, and my teammates, my crew were very professional. We didn't get enamored a lot, even though there was a lot of people there that we were just like, holy fuck, this is like the A-listers of A-listers. But my manager at the time, big Marvel fan, grew up young and black, so his icons were Black Panther and Luke Cage, and later Miles Morales when they introduced him. And when he saw Chadwick Boseman there, the fucking like, it was so obvious, like he was freaking out. Like everyone could see his fucking face from grinning ear to ear. Chadwick clocked it right away. He was just like looking at him, and he's like, "Hey, it's okay. You can calm down." And he's like, "I'm so sorry. This is very unprofessional of me." And he's just like, "No, it's fine. Just get it out of your system. Just do it, okay? All right, it's okay. Just do it." And he's like,
he understood.
And he's like, "Thank you." And he just crosses his arm and he goes, "Wakanda forever." And Chadwick does the voice, and he's like, "Wakanda forever, my brother." And my manager loses his shit. He's like, "This is the best day of my life." And his wife is right there, and he's like, "What did you say?" He's like, "You heard me."
I will not change my answer. That's so juice. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I mean, rest in power. Wakanda forever, my guy.
Rest in power.
Oh, man. All right, well, speaking of geeking out and having those giddy moments, what inanimate object would you want to be best friends with were it sentient?
I have this, like, Tony Chopper stuffed doll that I'm giving to my nephew, but I would love for it to be real, and I would love to hang out with Tony Chopper from One Piece.
That's so beautiful. Why are you giving it to your niece? Just pass on the love? They just got into the show. What spurned this?
He's 1 year old and he's still learning things, and I love telling stories, so I tell him stories all the time. So far, his favorites are Sith stories that I've been telling him. I've been telling him like a Sith Lord. I did Darth Plagueis the Wise, and he is my young apprentice, and I do the voices and how we have to my young apprentice. We have to defeat the Jedi. It makes him giggle. My sister hates it because she's like, "You're corrupting him," and it's like, it's inside him.
It has been foretold.
The child is gifted in the powers of the dark side of the Force. You cannot withhold his destiny.
Righteous. Oh, that's so sweet. Well, I hope he appreciates the, gravitas of that gift.
I hope he does too. So far, he just growls and eats my glasses.
Are you sure she didn't just bring home a dog? What's a job that at some point in your life you wanted to pursue but are very glad you didn't get or just didn't end up trying to follow up on?
I was once offered a job working in one of those homes for the elderly and sick. I can't remember what it's called. But it was one of the most depressing things I've ever seen in my life. I was living, I think, in Michigan at the time, and I really needed a job, and someone told me they were offering like $20 an hour to help clean up, and I got there, and they're like, you have to clean, you have to spend time with them, you have to help wipe down the bodies, and help them go to the bathroom. And they did me a tour throughout the facility, and it smelled like death. Everyone was sad and not talking to each other. There's like ambient background TV noises. And like, this is the most depressing thing I ever seen in my life. Because it's just a bunch of old people that no one wanted to take care of. In a facility that's understaffed. And it's just like, and I was like, I don't want to walk people to their graves. I don't want to do it. It's way too much for me. I would kill myself if I stayed there. And I told them that too. I was just like, I can't do this. I'm sorry. This is just too, this is too much. I'm depressed. And they're like, we will give you more money. Well, $23 an hour. And I'm like, no, I really can't. And it's like $25 an hour. It's like, no, I can't walk, old Phyllis to the grave. Yeah. And they're like $30 an hour. And I hesitated for a second. Then I was like, no, I'm good.
They almost got you.
I really needed the money. But I didn't want to walk into a room one day and be like, Gladys?
No.
And then,
well, speaking of somebody who needed the money at the time, that kind of segues nicely into this next question, which is, what poor man luxury do you still enjoy to this day? That I'm sure, especially at said time, you probably enjoyed then.
Poor man luxury.
Yeah. Think like Kraft mac and cheese, or going and like playing ROM games online, or like going to Miniclip or something like that. Something that like is the bedrock of, not being broke, but like, trying to the sweeter things in a financially unstable life. Like a Pabst Blue Ribbon or something like that. It usually ends up being food, but it can be other things, like some cheap movie to rent or something like that.
I think I'm gonna go with food as well. Mine was these poor man noodles, as we would call them. It was just the cheapest noodles you could find, and some butter and some Parmesan cheese. And if you could afford all those things, it was just a great combination of just cheese on
butter
noodles.
Noodle supremacy, man.
Butter noodles all day. Even like when I got more financially stable, and I remember growing up pretty poor, we got better in like by high school. We're financially, we're middle class, and it's just like, you can have anything you want. And I was just like, I want poor man noodles for dinner.
I still would like these buttered noodles with Parmesan cheese, please.
So you don't want to go get a steak dinner? I was like, I will get steak another time. I want buttered noodles.
Well, other than learning the supremacy of buttered noodles, what life lesson do you wish you learned sooner?
For life lesson, I think the thing I should have learned a long time ago was not taking things personally.
Mm-hmm.
Not everyone's going to care about you. Not everyone owes you anything. And just because things didn't work out or someone didn't pick you first, it's not the end of the world.
Yeah.
That one stuck for like all of high school and through most of college. And I was just like, I'm such an idiot. I should have just ignored them and moved on.
Yeah. Everybody, it works like in two ways. Like everybody that you're not like close with, or that you don't know personally, is an NPC, and vice versa. Or it's like the NPC doesn't care about you, doesn't have it out for you. And likewise, what the NPC, says about you shouldn't mean anything because it's an NPC. right?
Yeah, I think
Like a gaming, comparative.
I think most people, and I have this trouble in LA, is because especially when working security, is that telling people no is not malicious. It's just indifferent.
Yeah. It's so hard. I totally see where like the impetus behind that statement for you comes from, because it does feel like saying no to somebody is like, because it feels bad, like, or for like the common man.
Well, you're being rejected. Like, it's...
Yeah, exactly.
No one likes being rejected, and it sucks. I've been rejected.
Like, rejecting somebody else sucks, too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're not really rejecting them. You're rejecting the idea of them, where, like, it's like, this is what I thought was going to happen, or this is what I thought was going to be. But now you have to kind of let that go.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really tough one, but that is a great way of encapsulating it. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm smart sometimes.
All right, well, if you think you're so smart, I'm going to give you this hypothetical. You're going out to a party. You want to look extra. Other than your normal garb, what accessory do you add to your ensemble to pop?
To pop?
Yeah, you want to be looking your best. You want to be noticed in a good way. You don't want to like stand out like a sore thumb. You want to like people are like, hey yo, just like, head turner, eye catcher.
Well, if you're gonna go out all the way. I wish for someone my size I had more choices to pop out. I have like a couple decent shirts where I can be like, oh, this is really nice. I have one shirt that I love. It looks like I am clouds. Like it's very spirally, but it's like it's very blue and it's very soft, but it pops and I stand out like a sore thumb, and I love it because it looks really nice. And I'm just like, I wish I had more options. Because have you ever seen like these? I don't know what age group you're in, if a millennial or not.
Yes, technically.
I felt your millennial energy in you. These Gen Zers, their styles, out of there. It's completely wild to me. Like I remember millennials being very trendy, and we all followed like the now outfit. Gen Z, I don't feel they have a now outfit. They have the now style of just like, this is my feeling. This is what I express myself. And I'm just like, that is so cool. Like I wish I had those options today, but yeah. I'm a very big guy and they don't do that. I would get kicked out of the store. It's like, we don't want you in our style.
No. I have seen said shirt and I do agree. It does make you pop. I wouldn't say like a sore thumb. I would say like a sweet thumb, but you do pop, sir.
Yes, I do.
You're looking fly.
Thank you.
When you think of the Gen Zers having all these options that are not available to you, what would you say is your favorite non-traditional curse word that you would like to utter in said moment?
I don't think it's really a curse word, but in my family we say muckalai a lot. And it's like a curse where like we try to give someone bad luck.
All right, so first off, spell it for someone as White Toast is the host.
Oh, I wouldn't even know how to spell it. It's like M-U.
Say it again?
I don't even know how to spell it, to be honest. I don't think it's one of those written words.
No, like just say it one more time, like a little on the slower side.
Oh, muckalai. And you're supposed to like point at someone. You're like you close your hand out and you spread your hand out fully, and you whatever you're doing, you like muckalai. You're like you're casting a curse on someone.
Huh.
We usually do it for sporting events to give bad luck.
What heritage does this term come from?
I don't know if it's a specific heritage, but it definitely came from my dad's side of the family, and he's Seneca from New York area.
That's really insane. That's awesome. So that like it's predominantly what kind of sporting events are we talking? Are we talking soccer, rugby?
Any sporting event. Football is a big favorite, where like the opposing team has the ball. We curse the shit out of them. We curse each other during like bowling events. There's no limit.
So is this something that when done, if I'm understanding you correctly, it's almost done. It's done with some amount of vitriol, but also there's some amount of hilarity to it. So it's kind of like it's kind of like, it's not something where if you said it to somebody, they would take grave offense, but rather like there's a little bit of jest involved in its, nature. Is that accurate?
There's definitely jest, because you hear us saying it to you. It's not under our breath. We'll be like, we're basically just telling you to have bad luck to your face. Or I hope you fail.
It's not like bad luck in the way of like, I hope your family gets sick with the plague and like dies or anything like that. It's not like there are some older, I guess predominantly European cultures where if they like, put a curse on you or said something curse-y, that it would be, if somebody else heard it, there would be like grave offense taken.
I think
or like if you, in like Britain, if you sorry, what?
I think one of the best one of those I've heard was ancient Romans would be like, I hope you live in interesting times. And going through the pandemic, I understand that better than ever now.
I hope you live in interesting times. That's hilarious.
No, ours is more like, I hope you stub your toe.
Yeah. You want this bad thing, but on the scale of bad things, it's far on the more tepid end of the scale.
Yeah, like sneeze as you're about to throw the ball, you piece of shit.
Yeah. Just like flub the pass, or yeah. That's great. All right. Well, speaking of different times, who would you want to play you in a movie of your life? You can choose the actor and you can choose the time period of your life that is being portrayed.
Oh, I would love Sam Rockwell.
Nice. Already liking it.
In my 20s, when I was during my nomadic period of my life, when I lived nowhere longer than like a year in a town, and I would love Sam Rockwell to go through all my fuck ups, because it was definitely a lot of mistakes, but I learned something, I hope, from them.
That's great.
I think Sam Rockwell would be perfect for that.
Things is good.
Yeah.
Is there a book, graphic novel, TV show, movie, or video game that you've been putting off that is next on your to consume list that you just can't wait to break open?
That I can't wait to break open. I'm usually not very patient when it comes to things I want.
Maybe it hasn't been released yet. Like, are there any upcoming films or seasons of anime that really are, on your like, oh, I can't wait list?
Oh, yeah. I still can't wait for the end of One Piece, which has been going on for like 25 years now, and it's just getting better. But I feel like a little drug addict where I come back next week. He's like, you got any more? I need a hit. What happened in the next chapter? I cannot get enough of that series. It literally keeps me alive some days where I am like I don't know if I can get to tomorrow. Well, tomorrow is the new next chapter. I think I can make it.
How much longer is the series going to be, do you think?
They project 5
years.
They project 5 years. They gave like a timeline where it was like they think it's going to end in 5 years. At the rate we're going story-wise, if we don't have any more pauses and fillers, I feel like it's going to be like another 3. Because lately...
I hope you can survive the fillers if there are any.
Very rarely.
And lastly...
very rarely they're fillers, but they're pretty good fillers.
That's nice. No Naruto filler status. No, it's just like, this.
There was like a whole arc in One Piece where for years I didn't even know it was a filler until like someone mentioned it, and I was like, what? That was good storytelling. What the hell?
Filler doesn't have to mean it's bad. It usually just is, because like half the time like the main guy is no longer at the helm. But it's always nice when it sounds like that, property like knows kind of like what they're doing, and like that they're like kind of backup writers, or if their main writer's taking a break, they can still like give out an A effort. It's always good to see.
I can't believe the writer's statement when he finally finished his most recent arc. He was like, well, now I can finally write One Piece. All my backstory's finished. I can finally get to the good stuff. And like, that was 25 years.
It's all been leading up to this, baby. All right. And lastly, before we throw it to commercial break, if you could have listeners of this podcast hear one song of your choosing, which would it be?
I would absolutely pick If I Get High by Nothing But Thieves. I love this song to death. It is very beautiful. It's slow and depressing, which is basically my life. But it is very beautiful. And the range of this singer is so good that when I used to do Uber, people would like confuse him for a woman because he hits the high notes. Like they would be like, "Oh, who's she?" I'm like, "He is a great singer from Britain." And it's this beautiful.
Check yourself, sir.
And it's this beautiful song about this person who lost someone. And they do this great in the music video where someone's trying very hard to learn lucid dreaming through weed and meditation so they could see their mom again. Aww. In their dreams.
Yeah.
And the music was very, very beautiful. The music video is great too. And I love this song to death. And I'm very thankful that my friend introduced me to them when she went to a concert without me, which I was kind of still mad about.
All right, and with that, we're going to throw it to our first break. Feel free to stick around and enjoy this totally real commercial, or take a minute to enjoy If I Get High by Nothing But Thieves. Or if you really want to hear a song from a previous episode, check out the playlist on Spotify, Passionate People and Preposterous Peeves podcast song Rex. It is a long title, I am aware. Don't worry, there's a link in the description. Either way, see you in a jiffy. Hey you. Yes, you. Yes, I'm talking to you. Have you ever wanted to record audio? Or perhaps fiddle with recorded audio? Maybe even record audio of a fiddle and then fiddle with said audio? Well, now you can with Audacity? With all the run-of-the-mill bells and whistles, you'll be confusing yourself with the tech in no time. But won't that cost lots of money? Because with my snow-blowing habit, I can only afford it. Ain't gonna cost shit. Audacity is free and easy enough to use that even a snow-blowing son of a gun can use it too. Welcome back, everyone. So I'm here with Steven. Steven, what's the passion that you've brought with you today that you just can't wait to tell us about?
Well, as my moniker, Placebo DM, I am a Dungeons and Dragons fanatic, and I do it somewhat professionally on the side. So I am happy to talk about role-playing RPGs, especially Dungeons and Dragons.
Neato burrito. So we're going to step in the time machine now that we've got the, the sector on target. When did you start? Like, do you remember your first experience playing a role-playing game or being like introduced to it in any way?
I do remember. It was a horrible experience.
Oh, no.
I was playing in college with my roommates. I moved into this basement with these guys for our local college, and they were playing D&D, and I wanted to try it. And I think it was like 3.5 at the time. And I decided to play a female character, and they raped me.
That was fun.
Yeah, I got raped by some guards. It was horrible. We got the abortion done. I don't think my character can have kids anymore. It was just a really bad experience, and then I got off-putted for like years.
Yeah.
For a long time, I didn't play again. But then
I can see that.
But yeah, not a great way to start a game or start someone into their passionate thing.
Yeah.
And then
stunted your growth, I bet I would say.
And then it wasn't until I moved to LA in 2015, I believe it was.
All right. So let's before we get too far ahead of ourselves, when was this horrific college experience?
Like 2010.
Okay, so 5 years you don't play or like really engage in role-playing games because of this horrific experience and or opportunity.
Yeah, it was kind of weird, and back then D&D and tabletops were like very niche, even in the nerd culture. And it wasn't easy just like finding a group to play. But then I moved to LA and I didn't know anybody. I just kind of dropped in randomly by myself and I was looking for something to do. And I just decided to look online and there was a looking for group playing on Sundays at Meltdown Comics when that used to be around back in the day. And I met a very interesting group of people that I still play with to this day, to be honest, for like 7 years now going.
That's so cool.
Yeah, they're very dear friends of mine. They're one of the first friends I made in LA, and it's because of D&D that I was able to make friends.
Righteous.
So that's
so dope. Okay, so your first character, horrific experience. What did you, other than obviously the lack of sexual assault, what did the second session do that made it so great that you kind of stuck around? Or was it just the lack of horrific experiences that was needed to happen?
I think one of the better experiences, I had a really good DM named Ben who was very knowledgeable and he was very welcoming and he was very patient with people learning. And so I think 5e was pretty new at the time too, and he started a group so people could learn, so he could play with them, and it was very fun. I started playing a character I named Gil Thunder Stormont, who was a jackass. He was meant to be hated, and like story wise, I was like, I want you to hate him at first, and then he grows into a lovable bastard that you all love. And like no one liked that idea at first because he was kind of a jerk. Like he talked to the halfling, like, "Don't worry, one day you'll grow up, and you'll be a beautiful lady." And it's like I'm already an adult. And it's like ooh, but it was but it was a lot of fun because I got to see I love making puns in my stories, and one of my best puns is with Gil Thunder, where we're playing a game and I talked peace between these two groups, and I was just like, I'm glad we were able to come to a mutual thunderstanding. And
that's
and my table looked at me just like with this deep sigh of regret. One person put his head on the table and they were all groaning, and I'm like, yes, it worked.
Nailed it. Oh my gosh, that's hilarious. All right, so you moved to LA, 2015. You get incorporated into this group, and one of my understandings, talking to your roommate Doug, who was the one that recommended you come on here, thank you, Douglas, is that you DM, like you were saying earlier, you DM for some fair, non-insignificant amount of money. When did you first start DMing?
I think around 2017, after like a couple of years of playing with my group, I learned a lot about it. And then we had this weird period where our DM couldn't be there for a while, and we had to cancel our games, but everyone wanted to keep playing. So there was this moment for people to step up and DM, and I wasn't the first one, but eventually I was just like, you know what, I'm going to try it. And I failed miserably. I my scaling was way off. I think my first game I killed the entire party, and I was just like, all right, we're going to pretend this didn't happen. Lesson learned. And then,
but even though you did mess up in that regard, did you find it to be very like satisfying? Was it like, oh, this is like what I should be doing, this is where I belong? Or was it still like you just were uncertain and it had messed up and wanted to try again?
It was kind of one of those things where I really loved doing it, and I didn't have this really sense of like, this is where I belong, but this is where I was having the most fun, because I was working like 2 jobs at the time, and like I was looking forward for the weekend where I can get to a table and have a lot of fun. And I love storytelling, and I love building things, and I love having these moments with my players, and I love giving them opportunities to do whatever they want and have like role-playing moments that are so great. And I was getting more and more excited to just create these moments with my players, that I was just always doing it until eventually someone was like, hey, can you teach us? We'll give you money. And I was like, sure.
That's cool. It was just like, it was love at first experience. You just enjoyed it, even though it was, you were, kind of like riding a bike backwards or a bad bike or a bike on training wheels, it was still fun for you. You still like experienced instant bliss, it sounds like.
Yeah, well, my style in particular is like very improv-y. Like I was like, I know a majority of the rules most of the time. Sometimes I forget them. But what the point is like I try to encourage my players every dumb idea. And my players can get pretty dumb. And it's always so much fun for me whenever they're like, we'd like to try to steal the princess. And I'm like, yes, do it.
Yeah, let's see what happens. What's the worst? They kill all of you? All right.
I think one of my favorite moments, I was running this game and we were in a pirate town, and at this point my players are afraid of me because everyone's stolen from them at this point. Like they've gotten to town, they've gotten almost robbed like 6 times. So they're hesitant to do anything alone, or I felt really bad because it's like, you want to go to the magic tower? It's like only wizards can go there. It's like, oh, I have to go by myself. I don't know about that. I'm like, please go to the tower. It's going to be fun. I promise. And they're trying to buy like a horse and carriage, and they go to the guy that can get it. And like one of my players is like, I'm going to sit here for 2 hours waiting for this guy to get the horse and carriage, right? He's like, you don't want to go shopping or anything? He's like, nope, I don't trust this guy. I'm going to stay right here. And we get the horse and carriage, and they're leaving town. And I just had this moment where I like, oh, I think this will be funny if I did this. And I pretended like this little kid ran up to the carriage and went, ow. And I was like, oh, my leg. They hit me with the carriage. My leg, my poor leg. Ow. And everyone can tell I'm fucking with them. And I'm just like, oh, my God, I totally saw. They totally hit this kid with a carriage. What the hell? You owe them compensation. And my player who's driving the carriage and everyone else is in it, he's like, I ain't paid shit. Yeah. And he decides to book it. And I'm
As
like,
you do.
As you do. And I'm like, all right, go for it. And I'm like, roll animal handling. And he does not, no one in my crew knows how to drive a carriage or handle animals. So it's just straight rolls. And he can't roll above a 10. And it's like 6. And I'm like, you were driving the cart like crazy. You're on a bridge. Someone jumped off the bridge. You almost hit somebody. You hit somebody else's cart. You hit somebody else's cart and their cart is destroyed. Like, what do you do? And he's like, in for a penny, in for a pound. Yeah. So now it's like GTA. It went from 1 star to 3 stars. And these guys are booking it as hard as they can. And I'm like, all right, another check. Go for it. And it's like, he rolls like a 3. And I'm like, you killed somebody. You ran over someone in the middle of the streets. You're in a busy market. There's people everywhere. What are you doing? He's like, well, can't stay here now. Yeah. And we're just going.
The answer is always, yeah.
So now they're going, and there's people dead in the city, and the people are like, well, we don't stand for this. Let's get an angry mob going. And then we notice one of the characters wasn't in the carriage, and he decides to join the angry mob. He's like Imhotep, and like he's like that guy from The Mummy. He's just like Imhotep. He's pretending to be a zombie.
Like faking it.
He's just faking it, which was hilarious. And we keep going, and like one of them is like, oh, I'm not a part of this at all. I didn't kill that guy. Help, they kidnapped me. And he's screaming outside of the carriage, help, they kidnapped me, they kidnapped me. And they're like, shut up. And they start tying him down. I'm like, wow, this makes it worse. You murdered someone, you're kidnapping someone, there's an angry mob. They ended up ditching the vehicle and getting run out of town. And at the end of it, when we're done laughing, I'm just like, what the fuck, guys? You could have tried lying your way out of it. You could have just gave him some money. You had a cleric that could have healed the kid. Like,
yeah. Instead, yeah. Oh, that's awesome. So, have you tried playing multiple RPGs, or are you predominantly like Dungeons and Dragons is your like your main gal, so to speak?
Well, my number one is still D&D. It's most of my time is spent on that, but I do branch out into the other stuff. I want to get a Starfinder game going. I got to play that a bit with my friends Doug and Bruce and them, which was really fun. I learned like there was a race of cybernetic bears, which I thought was hilarious. Where someone like they don't know their origin story, but I guess somebody thought it'd be fun to make a grizzly bear into a cyborg.
It sounds like a blast.
And I'm like, this race sounds awesome. I'm down for it. And it's just like very inconvenient having this fucking grizzly bear going everywhere you go. And then sometimes I'm just like, they're like, we're in a ship and it's like, what are you guys doing? I'm a doctor. I'm working on something. I'm the ship captain. I'm working on the ship. I'm the engineer. I'm working on the engine. It's like, well, what do you do, bear? I'm like, I'm in my room playing with a ball.
Where I should be.
Where I should be.
So what is it about Dungeons and Dragons compared to the other role-playing games that has you returning back more than it has you branching out? Is it just that good of a game? Or are you just that comfortable?
It's definitely a very good game to play, and I'm very comfortable playing it, and I'm always down to learn new games, but like it is something easier to get people into, especially in the popularity age that we live now, where we have our Matt Mercers and Mulligans who are professional DMs, and you can listen to like a dozen different podcasts now and the online web series. It's definitely like the most popular brand in the series of online games, which is great. I'm so happy that it's becoming what it is now compared to what it was 10 years ago when no one did it, and like people were being considered nerds and they didn't have friends for it.
Nerds or worse.
Or worse.
Like, I mean, depending how far you go back, like there was like a very much satanic aspect to it. There was a lot of, was it I don't quite remember, it's 90s or late 80s, the satanic panic.
Yeah.
Where just the idea of something of that genre was just like foreboding. Is very much looked down upon, or even, outright terrifying to certain sects of society.
Yeah, it was definitely an outcast genre, and they really shouldn't have been, but I understand why it was done that way. And then in the 90s didn't really help it. In early 2000s, there was some going on, but it was still a niche market, even in nerd culture. Like, you had your comic book nerds who were like fucking loving the fact that the Marvel universe was taking off. But like, it wasn't really big until like Mercer like fucking kicked open the gates for everyone with Critical Role.
Yeah. And now we have a big budget movie starring Chris Pine coming out. That may or may not be good, but it's literally branded Dungeons and Dragons.
I mean, there was that very unsuccessful Dungeons and Dragons movies in the 2000s.
Yeah, the one that was just like... But I mean, I'm trying to remember back. Did that one have star power or like major release to it? It kind of felt like it was... I don't remember seeing ads for that one in particular on like TV. So I'm hoping that this one is kind of more of like a step in the like, induction into like the cultural zeitgeist than the like, we're going to try this half-assed. Like, cause this one looks like it's got a budget. Like, we got good looking CGI going on. We got like A-listers, heading the crew. Fingers crossed for you and yours.
Yeah, fingers crossed, definitely. Chris Pine looks like he's having fun with it. And he always seemed like a funnier guy than people give him credit for.
Absolutely.
And I think the original D&D movies had like a star. Not like the biggest star, but it was definitely a star. And I remember one of the Wayans brothers being in it too.
Yeah, one of the Wayans in it. So I guess since we're talking about it, is this something that you're hopeful for? It looks bad to you. Where does this kind of rank for you?
I'm hopeful for it because it encourages more storytelling, more branching on the storytelling, and I think they're going like, it feels like they're doing a very good dynamic of a D&D party. Like the group itself, it seems like very good characters that we could like, and would be and like we would have fun playing as, which is great. The story itself seems pretty simple and very D&D-esque. It's like, well, we fucked up and stole the wrong thing. And I'm like, yeah, that sounds like a game I would run.
Sounds like something you'd want to DM on or play in.
And I hope it encourages more stories like that being told. And one thing I'm trying to do is like more D&D content online, because I am terrible with online content. And I'm just like, what if I just told some of my favorite stories from D&D and animated them? And just like, and encourage people online to like send me their favorite D&D stories, and then I'll get me and my animation friends will work together and make a bunch of animated series so people could see the fun we're having playing D&D.
right? Because it is just so much fun. Like that is at the end of the day, that is the crux of it, is just hanging out with your friends, enjoying it via the medium that is this, game storytelling device. Am I correctly summarizing it?
Yeah, it is definitely that, where the point of the game is just having fun, and that's why I love it, because you can just have a ridiculous idea and just go for it. One of my characters was trying to be a god, and I made pamphlets, and I would would you like to worship me at church this Sunday?
What would you say is the biggest misconception about Dungeons and Dragons and role playing by the wider world, other than the misconceptions that are now, I hopefully predominantly put to rest, of that you're actually conjuring demons and doing witchcraft of a sort?
I think two big misconceptions right now is that it's too much, it's a lot to learn, and there is a good amount of things to learn. There's ways, mechanics, especially what game you're playing. There are mechanics that have to be learned to make the thing work. But really, it's just you make up whatever you want on the spot and roll some dice. And if it's good, you let it go through. And another thing is that I get a lot professionally doing DMing is people who come up with I want a Matt Mercer to run my game like Critical Role. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, that is only possible with Matt Mercer and his crew. I'm a good DM. I have fun with it. I do good voices. I'm not Matt Mercer. I don't have a full-time schedule to write an entire homebrew role just for this one thing. And you're not the characters who are also professional actors and voice actors and improv comics. These shows are scripted to a certain degree. I think there's a good show is 50% scripted. And anyone who's ever DM'd knows that your game has to follow some sort of story that you kind of lead your players on. So there is a script to it to make it work. And the difference between an online game that you see on the YouTube and their Patreon channels, these guys are professionals. They are actors, they're improv comics, they are professional storytellers in a studio, getting it right in a day, and then editing it so you get the best experience possible. An improv game in life, I only got 3 hours to kind of get something to work, and you're not going to like everything I do. I'm not going to like everything you do, but we have to improv it to make it work.
Yeah, it's a game, it's trial and error. It's an experience. It's not, it's the difference between going to a play versus going and seeing a movie, right?
Yeah.
As opposed to something that's cut, edited, you can do more. I'm assuming, and this is no, derogatory, meant for Matt Mercer and his crew, but they are putting on a production. They are not putting on a game so much, right? Because if something goes wrong or they think of something better, one, they're troubleshooting a lot pre-hand, which you don't have the time or resources to do because that is not your full-time job. Two, if something doesn't work and somebody comes up with a better idea, they can reshoot or redo a scene effectively, where you're having to do it all the way through with your notes and with your past experiences, but hope that the people that are playing get it, and hoping that they kind of pick up what you're putting down and things go according to plan, which since there are, decisions that can be made by the band, it can kind of lead that astray.
Yeah,
am I getting that mostly right?
Yeah, you are, and I'm not hating on them for it because they're amazing at what they do, and the stories they come up with. It's I can tell which part of them are genuinely someone thought of something at the last second, and it worked great. That's how filming works in productions and full movies too. It's you have a script, you follow it mostly, you edit as you need to, and sometimes you come up with great things. The great thing about their shows is that they can have a rewind and they can edit out things. A live performance, you don't get to do that.
Yep. On the kind of flip side of the coin, what would you say is your favorite non-obvious aspect to being the dungeon master and playing role-playing games?
I think this is obvious for DMs, but for most people, it's most of the times when I'm behind the board, you see me writing something and I ask you a question. I'm really just bullshitting just to see your reaction. I'll ask, like, what's your passive perception? 14? Okay. Scribble something down. Look at my phone for a note. Okay, 14. All right, sounds good. Maybe I'll roll a die just to see how you react. One of my favorites is, are you sure you're going to do that?
Just as, like, not that they're doing something wrong, but just to, like, you know, kind of mess with them.
Yeah, like one time my players, they unlocked this secret door and it's like, I'm going to go in. I'm like, are you sure? And he's like, I don't know. Can I check for traps? Yeah, you can check for traps. Roll perception. Oh, you don't see any physical traps. And then it's like, all right, I step in. All right, nothing happens.
So, since it has been kind of popping off as of recently with, you know, Critical Role, they're making a movie with Chris Pine, and Stranger Things, what do you think is one of the best showcasings for those who haven't had the experience of playing Dungeons and Dragons of what it's actually like? And on the flip side of that, is there any that are just like wildly inaccurate that people would be exposed to via, you know, media?
For inaccuracy is really hard to tell because I don't pay attention to the bad stuff that's happening. I have a filter. You have to be at least this tall to get on this ride. But I think some of the best stuff is that there is this weird online movement going on where there is a lot of online players where there are people who are professionally playing like me who are not like Matt Mercer full-time 24/7 do it, but making an extra like a $200 every once in a while to do a game that they love. So that extra $2 could go to rent, or maybe that $200 goes to a new mini, like a Tiamat mini. One of the exciting purchases I made was a 3D printer, which broke down unfortunately, but I was excited to make minis and maps and terrains, which is a lot cheaper and easier just to do myself. I will get it fixed and start doing that more often, but I was excited to be like, I want everyone to come up with a character. I want to see your character. I'm going to print it out for you. I'm going to make your mini. Your character is going to be real. And there's people online who are doing that right now. There's like, I think I saw a group in passing once where they're like, give us your character. We'll print it out for you. So there's this great self-explanation.
That's so cool. Yeah. Instead of having to use, you know, because I remember watching people play Dungeons and Dragons when I was growing up at the like local card shop, and they would be using something that was close or something that was hilarious. You know, like they'd be using like a Disney like little miniature character for their like were-tiger, and they would be having like a Tigger. You know, just like moving around. It'd be like, you know, like the closest they could get at the time. It's funny, hilarious. And then other people would use, they're trying to be more accurate. They'd use like Warhammer models, and they'd paint them to look like their armor or whatever like that. And that was like really cool, but it wasn't, you know, it was in a close approximation. It wasn't like what their character looked like for, you know, whichever reason. Instead of riding a horse, they were riding a donkey, and, you know, they weren't that tall. They didn't actually carry a sword, something like that. So if I'm understanding you correctly now, because of like 3D printing, you can get a lot closer and have like a more authentic experience for each person involved.
I wouldn't say more authentic. Authentic is a very personal thing. I would say more personal experience, because you can express yourself more. And I see these groups of people online. Like, there are people who love drawing and want to draw professionally. They do it online, and they will do your portrait. They're not super D&D nerds, but you describe something to them, and they'll paint your portrait of your character perfectly for you for not that a lot of money. And you could finally like build your character the way you always envisioned it, and then you can give that portrait to someone who does 3D design, and you can make a mini. And it's not something that's close, it's something that you built for yourself that expresses you, and I think that is brilliant.
That is so cool. 'Cause I mean, like, at the end of the day, that is what it's all about, right? It is just, D&D is a form of self-expression, whether it's expressing the way you feel, expressing annoyance at something, and getting to, like, you know, get that angst out of you, getting to do something you've always wanted to do but are physically incapable. Like we can't fly as human beings, not yet. Jetpacks aren't that cheap. But, you know, getting to do these little things, getting to break the law and not have to deal with like consequences in reality. You know, like the thing your friend did, where it's just like, oh, this kid's, you know, trying to play us for the fool. Screw that. Yeah. Like, you can't do that in real life. I mean, you can, but then you go to jail or prison. But like, you can do that in a game. What's the, you know, the worst thing that happens is your character dies, which sucks. But, you know, it doesn't have any like long-standing ramifications on your person.
Yeah, definitely that. And there is a long-running joke that D&D is actually just free therapy. Because there's sometimes people will design a character that's just like something that's like a very personal issue for them, and they're able to talk about it in a way they never could before in a character.
That's so cool. And that, folks, is the power of role-playing. Get on it. Moving from something a little less beautiful to a little bit more bothersome. Steven, what is your preposterous peeve?
I wouldn't say this is like a pet peeve, but I definitely have this weird thing about gills. They're so disgusting to me. I cannot stand to look at them. Just talking about them now, I can feel them on my neck and it feels gross. I feel like you can get inside me and it's just like,
Okay, we're talking about gills specifically on a fish, not people named Gil.
I mean, that's a close proximity. You ever met a good guy named Gil? Remember that Kim Possible character, Gil? Gills aren't good guys.
When did you first notice this started happening to you? Because we were talking a little bit before the podcast started rolling, and it sounded like you grew up or you were raised in Alaska, or you spent a lot of time in Alaska?
Yeah, born and raised in Alaska.
So that, correct me if I'm wrong, there's a fair amount of fishing that takes place in their area. Is that about right?
Yeah, it's a big staple of our life. It's a big staple of my diet. It used to be. I grew up fishing and around fishermen, so there was always fish. And people would just like put their hands in the gills and hold their fish from the inside. And I'd be like, so gross. It's like, hold the fish. No, I don't want to. I'd see it.
This is starting like age, like as first as you can remember, you always were anti-gill.
I don't think I've ever been comfortable around a fish when its neck is open. I'm just like, It's.
Do you have trouble therefore eating fish, or are you fine like eating fish?
I'm fine eating fish. I grew up on salmon. That shit's delicious. If it's my last meal, I'm gonna pick some salmon or some deep fried halibut. I just don't want to look at it breathing, and I want to see.
You don't want to see how the sausage is made.
I don't want to at all.
Style.
Yeah.
Is there a story where it kind of shone the brightest, where it like became, ended up becoming a bit more of a mountain than a molehill?
There's definitely like a moment where like I think my cousin like put his hands in the gills and he put his finger out the mouth and he's like, look. And I'm like, oh God, no, not okay. And he's like, I'll do that to you. I'm like, no.
So it's interesting. Not only do you have problems with fish, but if I'm hearing you correctly, you occasionally will have this like, I hope I'm using this correctly, this psychosomatic experience where you'll like feel as if you have gills on the side of your neck.
It feels like my neck and my insides are exposed like the way the gills are. And it just terrifies me. I'm just like, oh my God, they can get in. I'm not safe.
Is this something that happens when you see gills on a fish and like you like kind of like transpose that, physical attribute to yourself? Or is this something that happens regardless of being around fish? You'll just occasionally like feel it for seemingly no reason.
It's not my immediate, like when I look at a fish, it definitely takes like a minute, and it's bigger fish too, because you can see more inside. Because when these bigger fish, man, when their gills move, you peek inside the whole thing. And It's always been gross to me. And at first, like I can like, ignore it. Don't look at it, Steven. You know how you get. Don't think about it. Just get it out of your head. Focus on the date or the shoe. Yeah. You hate. Why is my shoe untied? It's because you didn't tie it because it's exposed, like the gills. Oh God, the gills.
Oh, I'm sorry, but that is hilarious. Well, to get you away from this preposterous peeveful phobia, we're going to head to our second ad break, but don't go anywhere, because when we get back, Steven is going to enter the lightning round. Do you need 100 pounds of butter? Come on down to Company Street Company.
What if I need 30 gallons of olive oil?
Come on down to Company Street Company.
But what if I just want one flatless bird roasted for a reasonable price?
Come on down to Company Street Company.
Okay, but...
Just come on down to Company Street Company. We have everything for a better price, free snacks, and employees who don't want to kill themselves, or you, because we treat them like fucking human beings. Yeah, but, yup.
Even...
Just get your ass down to Company Street Company, where the only sketchy thing we've ever done is enable frozen orange juice hoarders. And we're back. Steven, are you ready to enter lightning round?
The lightning round?
Ka-chow! Let's go.
All right, buckle your seatbelts and keep your arms inside the ride at all times. Steven, is there a price for you to give up your passion forever?
$1 billion.
Make the food or do the dishes?
I'd rather make the food because I enjoy it. You can clean the dishes.
Are soups smoothies?
Oh, that sounds so weird. I'm hard to disagree. It doesn't sound right.
Did you ever cheat on a test in school?
All the time.
Are you out of touch, or is it the children who are wrong?
Oh, I'm definitely an old guy that has no idea what's going on. That Simpsons kid, it's like it. I was with it, but now I'm no longer it, and it will happen to you.
Would you rather have your inner monologue sound like Gilbert Gottfried or Fran Drescher?
Oh, Gilbert Gottfried, give me that Iago voice in my head.
Would you rather read the cue cards while wearing the crown, or live in a hovel and speak your mind?
Oh, I already live in a hovel and speak my mind, so let's try out the crown for a while.
Do you create your own thoughts, or do you just listen to them?
I'm definitely a reactor, so I don't think it through, so my thoughts are me.
Right on. You're having the best day of your life. What happens next? Another amazing thing or something terrible?
If we go by past experience, it's usually something terrible.
Samesies. You come across a stranger just struck by a car. Their dying breath is this. This is very important. Please tell my wife. She's a dirty harlot. Oh. Do you or do you not tell their wife?
Absolutely. I cannot wait to tell that story and see where it goes.
Is professional wrestling cool or lame?
I've never been into it, but I can see why people think it's cool.
Right on. Would you rather be completely made of eyeballs from the neck down, no eyelids, or be a remote-controlled Tonka truck from the neck down? You have the remote, but obviously lack the appendages to use it, therefore must give it to a trusted individual.
Oh, the Tonka truck sounds amazing because I wear glasses. I can afford all those.
Assuming there were no health or global effects to worry about, would you rather it always be dark or always be light?
I grew up in Alaska where it was constantly dark, and I moved to California for the light, so bring me the sun.
Good point. Stub your toe or make small talk with strangers?
Stub my toe.
Would you rather have a class of 40 students for 5 months or 20 students for 10 months, assuming the pay is the same regardless?
Probably quicker to do the smaller group first.
Do tomatoes belong in a fruit salad?
Technically, you can do anything to a fruit salad, and there's no law against it.
Do you believe that your life will have any significant impact on the world and human history?
I think it already did in some way.
Aww. If there were for sure no afterlife, would you live your life differently?
Yes, I wouldn't wear condoms.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, okay. Would you rather Would you rather be an omniscient amnesiac or have a nat 20 charisma with halitosis?
Oh. I'd rather be an amnesiac that's omniscient.
Plane flight or road trip?
Road trip. I can't fit in planes normally.
Also, I mean, road trips are more fun anyway.
Yeah.
Could you eat 37 of your favorite food for $5,000 in a 1 hour time limit?
Oh. Let's start the clock. Let's go.
Congratulations! You've survived the lightning round! But before we move on to your prize, I, like many listeners at home I'm sure, would like to now know, what is your favorite food?
I already think I said this, chicken Alfredo earlier.
Damn! 37 chicken Alfredo? I mean, I guess it's how small the bowl is. Or if it's like one forkful is technically a 37. I don't know. Respect. I like your commitment to the brand. All right, now that you've survived and answered all my questions, what lightning round question would you like to ask me and in turn be asked of future guests?
Would you prefer a day in or a night out?
Day in. Assuming that these are both, like either way, these are with my preferred company in either direction, like night out is with friends, a day in is with friends. Now I just want to change my answer. Shit. Fuck.
It's your show. You can edit it how you want.
I can. I don't want to edit this though. This is a really great question. I thought I knew the answer when you sent it to me, but now a night out with the peeps is usually like just transcendental. So I would say a night out, I guess. Because a night out, you go out with friends, you get delicious eats, you hang, you do things, you walk around. It's always fun, like walking about the town with friends. Good conversation happens. A day in can have aspects of that, but almost never as it's never as awesome.
A day in always sounds more solo and personal. Like I'm gonna relax. I'm gonna wake up without an alarm clock.
Yeah. I think a night out. Day in's a good answer. What about you? Are you a day in or a night out kind of guy?
I don't like waking up to alarm clocks, but I am definitely a night out festival type of guy.
All right, man. As we come to a close here, is there anything you want to plug, shout out to you like to give, places people can find you or your content?
Yeah, absolutely. If you ever want someone to help you learn D&D or help run a game for you, you can look for me online on my Instagram handle, Placebo DM, for your Matt Mercer Mulligan needs at off-brand prices. It is your Placebo DM, Steven SAUDACHE. You can also, like me, go to your local game store. I love Turn Zero here in Koreatown in Los Angeles.
Whoop, whoop. All right, man. Do you have any friends or family you'd like to nominate to come on this podcast so they too can suffer as you have today?
I think a good one would be my friend Anya Axton, who also was from Alaska, who moved to LA to do film stuff. I think she'd be a very cool addition to your list.
Sweet. We're coming for you, Anya. All right, man. Well, thank you, Stephen, for being my guest today. And a special thanks to my editor, Richard Ashford, my composer, Joshua Gibbons. And thank you. Yes, you listening at home or where you found time to appreciate this. Time is the most precious commodity we have, and I appreciate you spending yours with us. And if you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe, like, or just share it with a friend. Every little bit helps. Or if you already have and are out of episodes to listen to, don't worry. We put out a new episode every Monday at midnight on SoundCloud, YouTube, Spotify, and iTunes at Passionate People and Preposterous Peeps Podcast. And a very special thanks are due to our patrons, Sabelliello. And if you'd like to join said illustrious ranks and have your name read aloud, just head on over to patreon.com/Passionate People and Preposterous Peeps Podcast. And remember, folks, I'm glad you wore plaid. Just please don't be upset that I'm in a corset. Got him.